notacon.
I'm Steph the Geek, better known as Steph the Geek than Stephanie Packrell, but the title's a little bit of a joke, and I can't take complete credit for it, but as much as I kind of have been, getting away from the whole cam girl and everything that this started with, I can't forget that that's sort of still a big part of what, what my site is about, what I'm about, and how things started. So, you got all this nice academic sounding sort of thing down there, but a lot of it's about the boobs, so stick with that. This is where my site looked about 4 years ago. Actually in November, apparently, 4 years ago. And this is basically what I started. And to give you just a little bit of history, I happen to have a free webcam kicking around, and I've been doing web work forever, and it felt like forever. And I thought, hey, this whole webcam thing, I'm starting to see people doing this on the internet, and this would probably be a really good way to get more traffic to my website. So I hooked that webcam up and found out that it worked. And and I'd been working on sites for other people for so long, and it was kind of a nice change to be working on something for myself. So finally, this was my chance to express myself, write about whatever I wanted to, put my personal views online, and see what went with it. And 4 years later, that's pretty much what my site looks like now. A little bit compressed here we got going on, but and in the 4.5 years that I've been running it, it's really taken on a life of its own. And it's funny because I was talking to Drew last night, and I can completely relate with a lot of the stuff he's saying. I mean, obviously he's on a much bigger scale, but it's amazing just to have something that you love and you do because it's fun and because it's interesting. Take on a life of its own, and have the community take on a life of its own. So I'm not going to talk too long today because I like questions, and questions are good, and I even have little pins for questions, so because I'm dorky like that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the community, some of the interesting things I'm doing with technology, and what you can do with a personal site and building a community around a personal site. So history: I started the site just before I started university. Cam Pearl has talked about that a little bit. 2003, I did something that I thought I would never do, which was actually have people pay to join my site. And now to go back, the pay part, see this little tiny link up there? That's the pay part. It's not the whole thing. And that opened a lot of doors because it allowed me to do a lot more with media, and it was more than this is an expense and a hobby. It became more of a, not to call it a business, but it became more of a something that I could actually afford to do interesting things with technology, and I could afford to get a better digital camera, and I could afford the hosting that this was starting to cost. And in 2004, I did hit my numbers still around the same, about 40,000 unique visitors a month, which is a pretty cool number. I've got a few thousand people registered on the site. So sort of started to reach that kind of critical mass. So some of the technical stuff that I've got going on, that actually is PHP Nuke. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. It doesn't look like PHP Nuke, but that's a good thing in my opinion. And I moved to that because it made things a lot easier for me to update the content, and there was this sort of plug and play mentality going on, that if I wanted something, if I wanted a, try to think of some examples, a better form, if I wanted a certain feature that was available, chances are somebody out there had already written a PHP Nuke module for it, and all I would have to do was hack it up a little bit to fit in with what we've already got. So. Not necessarily a common thing on a personal website, seeing a content management system, but I mean, they're getting a lot more popular now. Another one that I've worked with a bit is Mamba, which I absolutely love. But so that is PHP Nuke, and it really, I'll get into more about talking about the overall integration in the community later, but it really opened the doors for that integration. RSS is my new baby. I love RSS. I love what it's doing for. I call it think of it like a Venn diagram with content on my site and on other people's sites. So, reaching out to other sites, but then syndicating the same content back onto my own site. And the same thing with that homepage. You saw all those little blobs like that. What those are little content areas syndicated to the forums. You saw the last 3 posts there, and that's syndicated to that. Do you have a question? Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah.
With using PHP-Nuke, I was under the impression they stopped development on that, or went something weird going on with that. I don't know if you had made any sort of
as far as I know, it's still going on. You know, I'm not big in the PHP-Nuke community. There's still updates being released. I'm running 6.9, and I think they're up to 7.6 or something like that. So there's been quite a bit that's come out since then. It's a project that's changed hands many times. There's people, there's been communities that have come up and taken PHP-Nuke and secured it up a little bit more and added stuff and released it as their own version of PHP-Nuke. So it's still going. It's still going strong. In hindsight, we were developing the existing site, I guess, about two years ago now. I might have wished that I had taken a little bit more of a look into other systems, but it served my needs at the time. I've sort of locked my chance out of upgrading it, basically, with all the stuff that we've done to it. So, anyway, yeah. So RSS has been a big one, and that's going to be continuing to expand in the future. Non-standard layout. Now, I don't know if, I'm speaking a lot from coming from sort of the webcam personal site world. I don't know if many of you have checked out some of the sites, but I swear, is there some kind of book that they all just get the same layouts from? It's like the column, and you get the blog, and you get the links that are both justified on both sides, and it's like the same layout, and I got so sick of seeing that. And my that homepage was actually inspired by a desktop wallpaper contest I had. I did this little, sort of a month-long contest, create the best Steph the Geek desktop wallpaper, and I was getting the most cheesy Photoshops ever. Like somebody would apply a filter or something, and here's your desktop wallpaper. And but then I got this one that was that sort of that stylized cartoon, but it was like a full body, and I was just blown away. I couldn't believe that this guy had spent so much time on it. And I loved it so much, and I said, can I use this in my site? And I said, can you make my chin look not so it's so pointy, and a few things like that didn't quite look like me, so I got him to tweak it a little bit, and I ended up using that for, and the flowing lines and all that was the foundation for the site. And I get a lot of mixed feedback on the design of the site, and it was interesting. Back in October, I was on CSS Vault, which is a sort of a web design critique site. And it was people on both sides, and they're having like this war with each other. Like people were like, "It's horrible, I hate it," and people, "I love it, it's different." But most people have the same comment, in that it's busy and there's a lot of information, and people get there and they don't know where to go. And you know what? In a way, that's okay, because it's a personal site, and I like people to get lost in it. One person made this comment that was just fantastic, and he was using it as a criticism, and he said, I went to the site when it was first posted, and then I went back to it again today, and I found something that I hadn't seen the site before. It's horrible. Like, what? That's great. That's awesome. You come back and you find something that you hadn't seen the first time. So, and I posted something to the effect. So the layout itself, for me, it was really made out of my own sort of selfish needs, because I found that I was going to my site, multiple times a day, and I was going to the same places. I was checking the forums, I was checking for new blog comments, I was checking like the same, half a dozen things every time I went, just to see if there was something new. I think, wouldn't it be great if you could just see what was new all at once on the homepage? So that's where that came from. Mobile webcam. This is something that I'm pretty proud of, because I'm pretty much the first one to be doing this. I know a couple. Oh, great. Should turn that one off before. I'm pretty much the first one to be doing this. I know some people have tinkered with it before, but I was using buzznet.com to have like a moblog for my phone when I got a camera phone, and this was cool. And I noticed that they had, again, RSS feeds. And I thought, well, if they're making that available, what if we run a script that checks for a new image? We could save that image as my webcam file, as the same JPEG image. Not only that, but we can read the subject line from it, and we can overlay that at a particular coordinate on the webcam image and put that as the caption. So you've got your standard webcam you've got your time and date, and then you've got the caption. So now, for the last, I guess I've been doing this almost a year now, or maybe about 8 months, and I've got I do it, for my Pocket PC now. It's really for anything with any mobile device that you can take a picture and then email with it. I can update my cam, instantly from anywhere, which is really cool, and it's something I've been doing, throughout the conference here. Obviously, there's wireless here, so I've been on the laptop too. But it's great. It's great anywhere I am. I once read an article about how they were using how people were using cell phones and camera phones and all that in Japan. And this guy was saying that, if you're stuck in traffic, you don't, and you're going to a meeting, you don't send a text message. I don't know how true this is about Japan, but it was certainly inspiring. So you don't send a text message saying, in traffic, going to be late, to see you soon. You take a picture of yourself looking sad with all the traffic around you. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. That's an interesting way to do it. And again, coming back, what all this is about for me is sharing my life online and putting as much of my life online as possible. So to be able to do that from anywhere, not being tied to either my laptop or some other devices, is really cool. And all it does is it emails that picture as an attachment to a dedicated email address, and then using a sort of a hacked up script of easymoblog, easymoblog.org, I think they are, that pulls it from that and then reposts it to my cam image. So it's a pretty cool thing. Wireless network camera, nothing really interesting unto itself, but it's something that I got recently because I now have a 24/7 cam running in my house, and that's done using a network camera, and that's something I'd like to expand more later on, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a second here. Future. So the thing for me is, I'm not really content just to sort of create a site and create this project and then it's finished and it's done and I'm done and I'm happy. I'm always trying to, improve on this, and one thing that I've always wanted to do is, have more of the sort of the reality, whatever you want to call it, not reality TV, but, voyeuristic kind of thing, and, unedited life and all that. But I don't like the way the other sites do it. I mean, usually when you see people who run their own little independent sites, they've got a kitchen cam, and they've got an office cam, and they've got all that. So you've got like a page with 8 cam windows on it. I'm like, that's just not efficient enough for me. What I want is one cam that knows where I am. And so I started looking at this. There was this, I think it was out of MIT. They were developing something called Cricket, which was an indoor location system I think it was using Wi-Fi. And and then I started looking into a couple other solutions, but everything was very proprietary. I'm not much of a hardware hacker. Like I'm the person who puts technology together in interesting ways. I've done some programming and some hardware. I know my way around these things, but I'm not, I don't proclaim to be very good at any of those things. So I sure as hell wasn't going to be like soldering things together and figuring this out. So, but then, RFID started coming out, and this is something that I'd really like to experiment with, and prices are coming down and all that. I'm sure you guys have heard of, the guy who just implanted the RFID in his hand and all that, and I don't know if, well, that wouldn't really work because it's got too short of a range anyway, but, they make RFID tags, like a key card or little keychains, things like that. What I would like to do is set up readers in various places around the house so it can actually detect what I'm closest to, and then have various cameras, fire for all of that. And see, this is where this gets into a different realm for me. I mean, this isn't about being a cam girl. This is about tinkering with all this cool shit like that actually has some kind of purpose. And that's what it's about for me, because it's so much fun to do this, and I don't know what other purpose I would do this for. It's great to tinker, but it's even better to have a purpose for it. So, so again, with the RFID and with the auto switching cams, that's something I'd really like to. Sort of my next plans. GPS tracker. Now I've sort of talked myself out of this, and so have other people. But there was a conference that I desperately wanted to go to but couldn't. That was run as part of ACM Multimedia in New York City, called the Continuous Archival and Retrieval of Personal Experiences. That's what it was. And they had the most amazing papers on this. And one of them was a continuous audio recording system that you would wear a microphone, and you would be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you would be recording everything that was going on in your life. So this would be, if you needed to remember the conversation that you had with so-and-so X days ago, or if you wanted to, do a sort of a backtrack of that, you could do that. But the problem is not so much with the technology of recording, because we all know it's very easy to just record audio constantly. It's what do you do with all that information? And what they were doing is both analyzing the audio and analyzing the ambient noise of the audio, and being able to define areas, based on that ambient noise. So you could once be on the subway, let's say, and tell it that was the subway, and then from then on it would know when that background noise was the same, you were on the subway. So you could have, it could categorize all your audio recordings by location. And you could also, again, tie that into a GPS tracker that would constantly know where you are. So anytime you've got your situation, you've got your coordinates, and another thing